And now, here's your host, Mo Vella.
Good afternoon, everybody. And thank you for joining us on this great Veterans Day. Now, I know you Veterans Day. Now, I know you see unfamiliar faces. And we were asked to stand in for Mo and kind of have a conversation about veterans on Veterans Day. And I'll introduce myself. My name is Joshua Jones. You're also tuned in with David Montoya and Michael Grandjean. And we are all veterans. And we're here today to talk to you about our time in the military, and our time as veterans after we left the military. So I'll go ahead and kick it off. I'll introduce myself, and then we'll do a quick round of introductions. Again, my name is Joshua Jones. Mike and David, if you would, when you do your introduction, say what branch of service you were in, maybe talk about the duty stations that you had, how long that you served, and what you're doing now. So quick introduction. My name, again, Joshua Jones. I served in the United States Air Force. My first duty station was at Kirtland Air Force Base. Loved every minute of it. Very, very cold place. And if you ever had the chance to visit, I would say give it one visit in your lifetime and make sure that you bring a jacket. From Montana, I went to Incirlik Air Base in Turkey and loved every minute of that. And from Incirlik Air Base, I went to Kirtland Air Force Base, which is in New Mexico, and that's where I currently reside. I served in the Air Force for about 11 and a half years. I was a security forces member, and I was out there toting guns, running, low crawling, and doing everything that I was asked to do. And right now, I'm currently on my own veteran-owned business. I do government relations and consulting, and that's a little bit about myself. And I'll kick it over to David if you'd like to introduce yourself, sir.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, guys, and thank you guys for your service. I'm David Montoya. I work with Mo Vella in his company, and I've known Mo for a very long time. I'm a proud Air Force veteran as well. I spent about almost 6 years, 11 months, and 23 days in the Air Force. Loved every minute of it, and loved the people I served with. So to all those A-10 drivers, hog pilots, maintainers, I salute you today. Loved being in a fighter squadron. That's where I spent most of my time in the Air Force. Stationed in Alaska, up at Eielson, which is real Alaska, and loved that. And then later on, I went to D.C. and did a headquarters job at Fort Belvoir, Virginia. Now I live in Albuquerque, New Mexico, with my wife Salil, and our 4 kids and 3 dogs and 2 cats, and loving life.
Absolutely. Thank you for your service. Mike, if you'd like to introduce yourself, sir.
You bet. I am Michael Grandjean. I currently reside in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I was born and raised here. I'm a United States Navy veteran. I was a hospital corpsman. I ended up starting off, and my first duty station was at the Naval Air Station in Corpus Christi, Texas. I worked in the emergency room there. And then from there, I got to go to a very special school called 8404, where I got to go from the blue side of the Navy to the green side, learned how to go through Marine Corps boot camp and become a Marine, and ended up spending time in Okinawa, Japan with artillery with 105 and 155 millimeter howitzers, and then off to California to Camp Pendleton, worked with 7th Engineer Support Battalion over there, and then finally with 4th Recon Delta Company. So I spent a total of 7.5 years doing my duty, and again, loved it and hated it. When I was in, I hated it, right? I was just like, dang, when am I going to get out of this dang thing, right? And then now I go back and I look at it and I go, it was the best time of my life, and I wouldn't change one thing for 1 second that I did and I learned in my entire time that I was in the Navy and my entire time with Marines. So again, happy Veterans Day to everybody, and thank you for having me today.
Absolutely. Thank you guys so much for being here with us today. And again, to all our veterans out there listening, thank you so much for your service, because, behind the scenes, You guys deal with a lot. You put up with a lot to ensure that we have our freedom. So thank you so much. We'll kick it off, Mike. Since you started last, we'll have you start first, and we'll just talk about why you went into the branch that you went into. We'll start from the very beginning. Why did you choose the Navy? What
Oh
appealed to you
my
about the Navy?
gosh. So, I grew up on the east side of the mountains, about 18 miles outside of Albuquerque. And there was an accident outside of our house, and we had the volunteer fire department come, and my mom was a nurse. And so we ended up taking care of this guy where the accident was. And then when I was 13 years old, I joined the volunteer fire department and learned how to be able to fight fires, and went to car accidents and did all that kind of stuff. So I started early on in kind of in the medical field. And I kind of knew right away that college was not for me at all in the cards.
Right.
Got my parents to sign when I was 16 years old. And I took my ASVAB and scored high enough that I was able to be a corpsman. And I went directly to being a corpsman. And so back then, that was in the mid 80s. You could kind of pick your job, and that's what I wanted to do. And that's how I started. I just, knew that I wanted to be in the medical field and serve and help others. And I had been doing that since I was young with my parents, and always volunteering and that kind of thing. So that's how I ended up in that part for me.
So you always had it in you to be a servant of the people. You were always helping folks. So it was kind of a natural fit for you to go in and be a Navy corpsman. And it's outstanding that you already knew that, you wanted to help people and save lives. So, thank you so much for doing what you did. And I'm sure that everyone is so happy that you chose the branch that you did and helped save some of those Navy folks out there. David, what about you, sir? What made you choose the Air Force, and what made you want to serve? Are you with us, David? All right, so
technology at its best, baby, right there.
Absolutely, but we're going to adapt and overcome. That's what we learned. That's what we learned to do in the military. So, a little bit about myself. I think we have a little crossover there, Mike. I was in high school. I was trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I was in the Navy JROTC, and did that, and I had all 20,000 uniforms that they gave me that I had to wear. And so I knew that I wanted to go into the military. My grandfather was in the Army. My uncle was in the Army. Had another uncle that was in the Army, and I'm just remembering as I'm going down the list. And then I had another uncle that was in the Air Force, and I had a taste of the Navy life. My uncles were heavily involved in the Army, and I had one uncle that was in the Air Force, and he told me, hey nephew, you see what your uncles go through. You might want to just sign up for the Air Force.
Bunch of babies.
Well, so here's the funny part, right? So I was actually going to go in and be a Marine. And they came to our school, and they signed us up, and they said, hey, you and your buddy, can come in our buddy program. And I was like, well, that sounds like, an amazing thing. So when I went and I told my mother about it, she was not happy at all. And of course, I was underage, and she wouldn't sign off on me joining the Marines. So she said, you can pick another one, right? So I did just that. And we'll talk about that as soon as we come back from our break.
Yeah, that was good, Josh.
I want to get back to seeing my grandbabies every Sunday and smothering them with big hugs and kisses.
I want to get back to football games with my boys.
I want to get back to feeling and touching, connecting with the people around me.
I want to get back to family dinners and my grandma's mac and cheese.
I want to get back to real grocery shopping, taking my time, walking down every aisle, smelling the tomatoes and melons, having a free sample or two, or 3.
COVID-19 has changed how we live and how we feel. But now, there are vaccines. And they are the first step that let us get back to feeling optimistic about the days ahead of us. It's okay to have questions.
Is it safe?
Should I get it?
Should I wait?
Now, get the facts. Learn more at getvaccineanswers.org so you can make an informed decision when vaccines are available to you. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Hey sis, missed you this morning. Kim told me you weren't feeling well, so I'm just doing a self-care check.
Oh, thank you, friend.
How you doing?
Girl, listen, my energy was so low because I didn't eat breakfast when I got up, so I had to miss virtual yoga with y'all.
Trust me, I understand.
But I'm doing much better now that I've eaten, so I'm back on track.
Great. In that case, let's get some steps in tonight. I'll come over and we can walk around the lake.
Sounds good. Appreciate you being in my business, too. Now, let me get in yours. Did you check your blood pressure today?
I did that and my squats, okay?
Okay.
High blood pressure is not going to be my friend if I can help it. See you at 6?
Let's get it. See you then.
Now more than ever, it's important that we protect our hearts and the hearts of those we love. Check in on one another and be a part of a healthy blood pressure movement. Rally your squad to take the online pledge at releasethepressure.org. Brought to you by the Release the Pressure Coalition and the Ad Council.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1887. That was the day that 4 men were hung in Chicago for their alleged role in the bombing at a labor rally at the city's Haymarket Square a year earlier. 8 men were put on trial. Although the prosecution did not prove any of the men had ties to the bombing, 5 were sentenced to die. Louis Ling died in jail before the execution could take place. The others were martyred for their support of the labor movement and the fight for the 8-hour day. 3 of those executed were born in Germany. August Spies and Adolf Fischer worked for a Chicago German-language workers' newspaper. George Engel owned a toy store. Backlash against foreign-born anarchists helped stoke public hysteria over Haymarket. The final martyr was Southern-born Albert Parsons, the editor of The Alarm, an English-language workers' paper. The day after they died, the Chicago Tribune reported on the brutality of their execution, writing, quote, "Then begins a scene of horror that freezes the blood. The loosely adjusted nooses remain behind the left ear and do not slip to the back of the neck. Not a single neck is broken, and the horrors of a death by strangulation begin." Thousands of mourners joined the funeral procession of the 5 slain men. In 1893, Governor John Peter Altgeld granted the 3 defendants still in jail a full pardon. The monument to the Haymarket 8 stands at Forest Home Cemetery, just west of Chicago, drawing visitors from across the world to remember these martyrs for the 8-hour movement. May Day is celebrated as the workers' holiday around the world in commemoration of the events in Chicago. Labor History in 2 brought to you by the Illinois Labor History Society and The Rick Smith Show. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com.
Welcome back to In the Know with Mo. And as we celebrate this Veterans Day, again, to all of our veterans that are listening today, we salute you. Thank you so much for your service. And thank you so much today for tuning in. So before we left, we were talking about, I think, Mike, you said I was scared to go into the Marines. Is that right? Is that correct?
Come on now, brother. Oh.
Yeah, so as the story goes, my mother was like, "No, you can pick something else other than the Marines." So I actually went to the recruiting office, and the recruiting office in Louisville, Kentucky, just where I'm from. Everybody is kind of in the same office, right? They're in the same building, and so I went down to the Army recruiter because I did not want to go into the Air Force. I think it's this there's this. I don't want to say soft, a softer type of connotation that goes with the Air Force. So I went down and I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go into the Army. And I was talking to the Army recruiter and I was like, well, do you have a signing bonus? And he was like, a signing bonus? You want a signing bonus? You take your ass down there to the Air Force. They'll give you some money. So I looked at the guy and I was like, well, I guess I'm going to the Air Force.
That's funny.
Yeah, so
That's
I walked down.
hilarious.
Yeah, so I walked down there to the Air Force recruiter. We got all signed up, and that's kind of in a 30,000 foot view of why I chose the Air Force. So David, you dropped off a little bit earlier, but I wanted to ask you, man. Ask Mike. I talked about it myself. Why did you choose the Air Force, and what made you want to serve?
Okay. So basically, all the men in my family going back the last 400 years are soldiers.
Hmm.
Served in the military one time. We actually came from Spain as soldiers, and so it's on almost an unbroken line of Montoyas have
Mm,
served their nation, and so it was never a matter of are you going to join? It's what you're going to do,
right.
and when you're going to join. You
Hmm.
know, I mean, I've got a great grandfather that fought in World War One, who was a prisoner of war for a while. I've got a grandpa who was a merchant marine,
Hmm.
and another grandpa that was in the army during World War II. And
Awesome.
my dad went to the Naval Academy. So since my grandpa was in the army, and then my dad was in the Navy, it's like when you talk about evolution, you
Hmm.
know, from being on all fours to being hunched over to walking fully erect. It was the Air Force.
Right.
and so, and so I think the other big influence on me was me and my cousin who passed away this year went and watched Top Gun together,
Mm.
and we were both the same age, and that was a huge influence on us. We'd talk about, hey, you're gonna be Goose, you're gonna be Mav, and it's like little games that kids play, but it was imprinted on us. He went on to serve in the Army as a helicopter pilot, and
Right.
and I went on the Air Force, serve as an intelligence officer. So, and because I was an officer, I didn't have that recruiting station story, right? It was you went to college, you went to ROTC, and you got your commission, and and so that's how it went. But it was good, that's why, and that's why I chose the Air Force. Is because it seemed like something that was going to really utilize what was between my ears a little bit more, and at the same time, I kind of felt like I wanted to be uh, close to the tip of the spear. And as a intelligence officer supporting special operations, and as an intelligence officer supporting a fighter squadron, yeah, that was about as cool of a job as you could have in the Air Force besides flying. You know, which because I can't see straight, was never going to be an option for me. special operators in the Air Force. And then we also had a group of SEALs going through pipeline as well. And so myself and another young lieutenant from the Navy, it was our job and our only job. He says, you don't need to worry about, just don't fall out of the runs, don't quit. But your number one job in order to get your jump wings is to make sure that the PJs don't fight the SEALs and the SEALs don't fight the PJs.
Sounds about right, bro. Sounds about right.
And, oh my God, it was challenging because the SEALs you'd never be a SEAL because you need to be able to use hair product, like a whole can of mousse every day, and and the PJs were either born again Christians or they were like Buddha surfer dudes looking for Zen, and so it was jump school was a lot of fun. You just had to follow the guy in front of you, and you eventually graduated. But yeah, those were good times. Josh, we were just talking about a quick story about what our lives were like in the military, right. and just kind of wanted to get some feedback from you on a good story about when you served.
A good story. I mean, where do you start? So as I go through my memory Rolodex, I'll tell a story about a time that all of us, and when I say all of us, all the branches were together. So we were down in Guernsey, Wyoming, and we were down there doing some convoy training, and we were going up against the Delta Force, and they were, we were doing some attack and recovery engagement drills and whatnot. And, when you're in those type of scenarios and those type of situations, you're normally, full go, non-stop training from the time you wake up to the time that you go to sleep, and you normally don't get any downtime. Well, we did get a little downtime, and we were talking to some of the locals there in Guernsey, Wyoming, and we went to this cliff jumping spot. So Navy, Marines, Air Force, Army, we're all there, right? And we're all jumping from like this little, 10-foot little jump, and everybody's having fun. There's music, everybody's laughing and joking, and it's a great time. And then of course, the Marines gotta take it up a notch, right? They never just stay with what we were doing, right? So somehow or another they find this 80-foot jump, right? And all of a sudden you just see bodies just coming off the side of a mountain. And they're woo, having a great time. They swim back up, and they're like, who's gonna jump? And nobody from the Air Force said they were gonna jump, and nobody from the Army said they were gonna jump, and of course nobody from the Navy was gonna jump. And then they just started isolating and targeting individual people, and I was one of those folks. And the Marines are always talking mad smack, and I'll tell you about the rest of the story after we come from break.
That's my people.
Hey, Dad, how do airplanes fly? What's in this box? Can I touch this? Where does sand come from? Is this tree good for climbing? What happens if I mix these two things together? How are babies made? What does this thing do?
Kids are curious about everything, including guns. Talking to them about gun safety in your home is a good first step, but you can do more. Always keep your guns locked, unloaded, and stored separately from ammunition. Storing your guns securely is the best way to prevent family fire, including unintentional shootings. For more information on safe gun storage and ways to keep your family safe, visit endfamilyfire.org. That's endfamilyfire.org.
What do we keep in the attic? What's this thing called? Can I ride my bike backwards?
Like I said, kids are curious. It's up to us to keep them safe. Brought to you by End Family Fire, Brady, and the Ad Council.
Right now, our country feels divided, but there's a place where people are coming together.
I gotta tell you, I was nervous to talk to someone so different than me.
Me too, but I'm glad we are.
Love Has No Labels and One Small Step are helping people with different political views, beliefs, and life experiences come together through conversation, and it feels good.
Wow, your story is so...
Interesting?
Yeah.
When people actually sit down, talk, and listen to one another, they can break down boundaries and connect as human beings. At lovehasnolabels.com/onesmallstep, you can listen to amazing, life-changing conversations and find simple tools to start a conversation of your own.
I know one thing. This conversation gives me hope.
It gives me a lot of hope, too.
Take a step toward bringing our country and your community together by having the courage to start a conversation at lovehasnolabels.com/onesmallstep. A message from StoryCorps, Love Has No Labels, and the Ad Council.
America's economic and political inequality has led workaday Americans to exclaim, "The system is broken. Let's fix it." But there's another version of this protest that I'm hearing more frequently these days. The system is fixed. Let's break it. That certainly applies to such rigged systems as money in politics and voter suppression, but it's also relevant to seemingly mundane matters that restrain our personal freedoms. One of the insidious fixes we need to break is the claim by brand-name corporations that we consumers must be banned by law from repairing the products they sell to us. The weak battery in your cell phone, the fuel sensor in a farmer's tractor, some gizmo in the toaster you bought, a fuse in your business's truck. You could fix all of these yourself or, with a little hassle, take the problem to a local repair shop. But no, such manufacturing powerhouses as Apple, John Deere, and Panasonic assert that only their corporate technicians are authorized to open the product which you own to make it work again. So you are expected to deliver it to their distant facility, wait however many days or weeks they tell you, and pay an inflated price. They've literally fixed the fix for consumer products. They impose their control by making the products as needlessly complicated as possible, then claiming that the complexity is their patented proprietary product. Thus, they say they don't have to provide repair manuals or sell repair tools to consumers or independent shops. Gotcha. To give their closed profiteering system the force of law, the giants have deployed armies of lobbyists and lawyers to legislatures and courts, arguing that self-repair people really are scoundrels trying to circumvent safety and environmental rules. This is Jim Hightower saying, for action, go to U.S. Public Interest Research Group, uspurg.org.
Welcome back, everybody. Again, happy Veterans Day. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We're here with David Montoya, Mike Grandjean, and myself, Josh Jones. And again, we'll say happy Veterans Day to all of our veterans. And before the break, I was telling you a story about my time in the military, something that was very memorable. And I was telling everybody that we're in Guernsey, Wyoming, and we're at a cliff jumping hole on some rec time. And everybody's having fun jumping off the cliff, and the Marines found this 80-foot cliff, and again, like I said, bodies just start flying off the side of a cliff, and we're kind of surprised by it, but but not surprised. So they swim back up, and they're trying to get everybody from other branches to jump off this 80-foot cliff, and nobody bit. They were talking smack, and nobody bit. So then they started talking smack individually to certain people. And back then I had a bit of a chip on my shoulder and a bit of a temper. So when they said what they said, because I can't say it on air, right? And you can only imagine what it is. And if you're a Marine, you already know. It triggered me, right? So I was like, you know what? Forget this. I'm about to climb the side of this mountain, and I'm about to go and jump. So we get up there. And mind you, I'd never been cliff jumping before, right? So the little 10-footer was more than enough for me. And I could tell that I was already nervous when I got up there. I don't have a afraid of heights, but I have a fear of falling. So it was about 3 Marines and myself up there, and I was like, hey man, listen, I've never done this before. I was like, but I'm already up here. I was like, do me a favor. I was like, point to where I need to jump, and I'm just gonna jump. So the Marine he's like, dude, you don't have, I was like, no, I'm already up here. I got to do it. So he goes to the edge of the cliff. He looks over, and he points. So as he's pointing, I just take off in a full sprint, right? because I knew if I waited, if I hesitated, I just wasn't going to do it. So as he's pointing, I just take off and I jump. And when I jump, no one told me that I needed to do a pencil dive from that high up, right? So I just jumped, and as I'm jumping, I'm parallel to the ground, right? And as I'm jumping, my face is toward the rock. So I'm falling in slow motion in my mind, right? And David, Mike, I thought that was it. I thought my life was over, man. I had no idea where I was going. And I'm falling, and time stood still, and I'm looking at these rocks. And if you ever talk to anybody, one of those Zen moments, and you just kind of feel like this is it. That's where I was at, man, mentally. So I just kind of released, man, and then I hit the water, and I felt nothing for a second, and then it felt like it was a million needles attacking my body all at once, because I'm assuming all the blood was coming back. So I took a moment and I swam to the top, and then I just seen bodies after bodies jumping into the water to come get me. But I was able to swim back. I was fine. But after I got out of the water, so the webbing in your mouth, like right there in between your two front teeth, it was completely ripped. So my gums were bleeding. My shorts were ripped on both sides. It kind of looked like I had a hula skirt on, and it was a crazy moment. So for everybody listening, if you ever go and you party with Marines, just stay in your lane. Just do what you can do.
Stay in your lane.
See what you should have done. What you should have done is join the Navy, because in the Navy they teach you how to jump off the side of a ship before it sinks. So you practice doing a 100-foot dive off the side of the ship, and they teach you how to do it, bro. That's what you should have done. You got to go to the Navy.
I did it wrong, Mike. I did it wrong. But yeah, that was a crazy day, and that's just one instance in 11 and a half career, and that's just one day. So you can only imagine what the rest of my time was like. But earlier, like David alluded to, the camaraderie is second to none. I often look back and miss the people that I worked with, and we were I'm not even going to say almost, we were a family, right? And I still stay connected to a lot of those folks today. So let's pivot a little bit and let's transition, because we're all veterans, and we all got out of the military. We all served and did our time. So I want to know, and we'll start with you, David. What was it like for you getting out of the military, right? Did you have a plan? Did the plan work? Did you have to readjust? What did that look like, and how did you feel when you got out?
Oh yeah. So my last station was in Fort Belvoir, Virginia, and I was in the DC area after 9/11, and so it was like right in our backyard. The Pentagon burned for weeks after 9/11, and certainly when you're there, you're that close. We hadn't been attacked like that since Pearl Harbor, and to serve. So there's so much that we could do from a headquarters, but that day changed everything, and so people even from where we were, what we did for a living. I worked in a place called I worked in a place called Joint Personnel Recovery Agency, and we were in charge of combat search and rescue for all the services. So a lot of us were immediately went on 24-hour, getting ready for what we knew was going to be, the decisions that were going to be made, and many of us forward deployed to Uzbekistan, like 2 days after 9/11, and started doing our job. So after that, you're in the headquarters level. You kind of see units starting to deploy, and you're like, oh man, I need to continue to serve and get to the pointy end there. And there was an A-10 unit, guard unit in Maryland that would eventually get out there. I mean, we were going to pull these guys out of caves one at a time with a bayonet, so you need A-10s, and transition them back to duty to that guard unit. At the same time, took a job with a defense contractor in DC, So, I really had the best of both worlds. I had still able to serve in my day job, and then still be close to the fight in the A-10 unit, and as y'all know, that we deployed 3 times in support of with the A-10s as an intelligence officer. So, so it's so when you talk about transition, my transition was sort of staggered, right? Active duty to the Guard, and then when I left the Guard in 2005, I immediately had a job because I was in the Guard. So my transition was kind of smooth in that regard.
Right. And same question to you, Mike. What was the transition like, and did you find it difficult? Was it easy? Was it what you thought it was going to be? Kind of talk to us about that. And did you have to, transform yourself a little bit to re-engage and reintegrate into civilian life?
Yeah, so my transition was difficult. When I got out, being a Navy corpsman stationed with the Marines, I was doing, everything just like a PA.
Right.
I was, seeing people and doing stuff, and we were doing trachs and chest tubes and doing everything that we could do. And when you got out, you could be a certified nursing assistant, and you could change bedpans and sheets for $6 an hour. And I was like, well, I'm not doing that. I've out of all the emergency stuff that I've done and being with the Marines and the things that I got to do there, I didn't want to do that. And so I started, selling used cars, and selling insurance, and I ended up sleeping on my buddy's couch for a year and waiting on tables and just kind of doing whatever I could do. And, that
we got in.
was super miserable for me. And I really had a hard time. And it was really tough getting out, because there wasn't a real transition program for veterans at that time, and that was back in the late 80s.
Right.
And so I was lucky enough to be able to meet a gentleman, and he said, hey, I want to get you into industrial hygiene. And so I became an industrial hygienist, and he sent me to some schools, and I learned about asbestos and lead and mold and doing air samples and being on the professional side of the environmental piece. And I got to learn how to do that. And then from there, I worked started my first company. And so I ended up starting my first company when I was 25. But my transition in that first couple of years was tough.
Right.
It was not easy for me, and there wasn't a lot of help back then, and there wasn't any programs, and you just kind of figured it out on your own, so it was a little tough for me.
How'd you stay strong through that whole ordeal?
For me, one of the great things that the military teaches you is resilience.
Exactly.
You're going to get through it. They kind of use that thing today where, it's the motto now is embrace the suck. Well, back then that's we invented that. We just didn't know that was the motto back then.
You didn't know it was the motto.
we just did it. We just made it through it. And you just pushed forward and you persevered. And the one thing that you learned is that you never, ever, 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 ever gave up. Just don't give up.
What I know about courage, I learned from my adoptive mom. She said sometimes you just gotta hold on and know we'll get through this. Mom, we are so high up. Hold my hand.
No,
you hold my hand. Here we go.
And we're going to keep going right after this break. Thank you so much.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org to find out more.
I learned patience from my adoptive dad. All he had to say was,
"Hey, you got this. Just breathe." Hey, we're pretty good.
Yeah.
Might have to start a band.
I got it.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. You can't imagine the reward. Visit adoptuskids.org to find out more. This message is brought to you by Adopt US Kids, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and the Ad Council.
COVID-19 has changed how we live and how we feel. We show up differently, worship differently, and have found new ways to express our love and support to family and friends. But now there are vaccines. And they are the first step that lets us get back into the things we miss most. Like spreading the word without spreading concern. Girls tripping instead of solo sipping. Brunching instead of late night munching. And talking smack with a side of mac and cheese. It's okay to have questions about COVID-19 vaccines.
Should I get it?
Should I wait?
Is it safe?
Can I trust it?
What about pre-existing conditions?
Now get the facts. Visit getvaccineanswers.org so you can make an informed decision when COVID-19 vaccines are available to you. Brought to you by the Ad Council.
Welcome to Code Whack, your podcast on America's broken healthcare system and how Medicare for All could help. I'm your host, Brenda Gazar. Why do more union workers than non-union workers participate in employer-sponsored health plans? We recently spoke to Cindy Young, a consultant who helps the Minnesota and California Nurses Associations with bargaining health and welfare benefits.
Well, until the ACA passed, there was no obligation of any employer to provide any benefits at all. So an employer never had to provide health insurance to a worker. When the Affordable Care Act passed, then the employer was required, and it's limited, but it does require the employer to offer insurance to full-time employees or to employees that work 30 or more hours in a week. And that was the first time in the history of this country that an employer had any obligation to put any money into it. So for years and years and years, how you got your benefits was either you were in a union and the union bargains wages, hours, and working conditions, or you got it through your employer who didn't want the union to organize. So they provided a level of benefits so that the union wouldn't come in, because then they would say, well, we don't want this third party to come between me and you. I'll give you these things that are similar to what those unionized workers get. You know, once the ACA passed, now the employer has to make this offer of coverage, what is considered affordable coverage. Of course, we know it's not, but that's, you know, really the beginning of an employer having some kind of legal obligation to provide benefits. So that's why unionized workers always have better benefits than non-union workers.
Thank you, Cindy Young. Get the full Code Whack story on ProgressiveVoices.com and on the PV app. Catch all our episodes by subscribing to Code Whack wherever you find your podcasts. This podcast is powered by Heal California, a nonprofit that uplifts the voices of those fighting for healthcare reform.
Welcome back to In the Know with Mo, where you have myself, Josh Jones, we're filling in for Mo Vella. We have Mike Grandjean, and we have David Montoya. We're all veterans, and again, if you're just tuning in, shame on you. You should have tuned in from the very beginning, but happy Veterans Day to all of our veterans. And you know, I got to take a quick moment since I'm filling in as a host for Mo Vella to put in a quick plug for my own podcast. So if you ever have time, you know, reach out, go to Anchor, and look up Answer the Damn Question, where we have candid conversations much like we're having today. But I want to jump right back into it. Mike, you were talking about resiliency. I want you to go ahead and finish up your thought and what you were talking about there, and then we'll move along.
Yeah, no, I mean, it was just, I mean, again, it's just one of those things that you learn in the military, and that's going to be in any branch, right? Is you rely on your brothers, but then the other thing is, and your sisters, but the other thing is you just know that you never give up, right? And you build this sense of not quitting and knowing that you'll do whatever it takes to get it done in whatever you do. And so, you know, with that being said, that just goes to everything that you do in life. You just don't give up. You just keep going.
No, absolutely. I think you said it best right there. You hit the nail right on the head. David, I'll kick it back over to you, man. And I want to ask, you know, you had your transition period. You know, you're out of the military for a little while now. So what are you doing with your life now? Where did you land? What are you doing now?
Well, you know, once I did get out of the military completely, I went and got a job in the U.S. Senate, working for Senator Bingaman, and eventually in the somewhere down the line, after a bunch of different things like Mike Grandjean did, I found myself working with Mo in the Vela group and helping small businesses become bigger businesses, a big business, and grow. And that's been very satisfying to really get in there as a consultant and continue to serve by helping veteran-owned small.
I think we're losing David. So we'll just go ahead and keep right on rolling. Mike, same question. You transitioned, you resilient, and you were, trying to find your way. Obviously now, I know you a little bit. You found your way, right? You're doing excellent right now. So if you can kind of talk about, what you're doing now, and you know, if you help veterans and whatnot.
Yeah. So the kind of quick story for me is, once I got out and I kind of got into the environmental industry, I went from the professional side of industrial hygiene, and I went into the commercial side of removing asbestos, lead, and mold. And I started my first company when I was 25. I borrowed $10,000 from my dad. I paid him back in 30 days. And it just started from there. And I became an entrepreneur and a small business owner, and that kind of stuff. And I wasn't able to become a veteran-owned business until probably about a year ago, because again, I didn't know that I even qualified, right?
Right.
And it wasn't until some years later and meeting David and having conversations and working with some other small businesses that I was working with, because in my course of doing what I started with, I moved into construction and became a Department of Defense and a Department of Energy general contractor. So I built everything for the government. Well, I mentor small businesses. And so by mentoring small businesses, I started mentoring some service disabled veteran owned small businesses, which then led me into, hey, did you ever, go back and see if you qualify as a service disabled veteran? And I didn't know that I did. And so I finally did. And about a year ago or year and a half ago, the company now became a service disabled small business. And we still do work. We're still doing work right now for the Department of Defense and Department of Energy. But we're now transitioning into doing a more commercial stuff at this point.
Right.
But I still love helping, and I still love mentoring all the veterans that I can. Especially in small businesses, because I've got almost 30 years now of business experience. And my education just happened to cost me, $7 or $8 million in mistakes that I've made over the years. So I tell people I have a PhD in business, practicing hard decisions. That's my PhD, baby. So yeah, that's what I did.
Right. So I know you had talked a little bit earlier about TAP, or and maybe there wasn't a TAP program when you got out, or it maybe wasn't as robust as it is now. And even now, and I'll be frank about it, it can use a little assistance, because when I got out of the military, it was a week of the transition assistance program, and if you're talking about being fed with a water hose, that's one of those moments, right? And I think it should be a little longer, and I think a little more interactive, to be able to help veterans truly reintegrate back into civilian life. But based on your experience and your transition out of the military, what advice would you give to veterans who had a similar experience that you had? Because there's a lot of us that get out and have an experience just like that, where we're sleeping on someone's couch, where we're looking for housing, right? We're looking for a job. We thought we had a job secured, but maybe we didn't, and it didn't come through. So, what advice would you give, and what resources would you tell those folks to look out for and engage?
Well, and I think today is certainly a lot different than when I got out, because I got out basically in the late 80s, and there wasn't a TAP program then. It was 2 days, and they said, okay, we're going to teach you how to do a resume. We're going to teach you how to go to a job interview. We're going to teach you what to dress. Good luck and have a great time, and do your best. And that was it for me when I got out.
2 days,
but I would say now today that the biggest things is the VA has a much better program these days.
Mm-hmm.
But I do not think, and I think as military personnel, men and women alike, because of the training that you're given, that you can do it and you can push through anything and you can make it work, we forget to ask for help.
Right.
We forget to go to the VA and say, hey, what programs do you have? Hey, who could I talk to that could help me, mentor me in whatever I want to get into, right? Whatever that is. And I think as veterans, we don't go and ask. I think part of our pride and part of what makes us the veteran that we are, to persevere and overcome in any instances that we are, is we forget to ask for help. And I think the VA does a much better job, certainly, than when I got out. But I think it's almost up to the member. You got to ask, you got to go, you got to go back and say, hey, I need some assistance.
Right. And with it being Veterans Day, what lasting message would you leave for our veterans today as we celebrate our heroes that are still with us, serving and not serving?
Well, the message for our veterans is always, thank you for your service.
Mm-hmm.
We would not be where we are today if we did not have every single service member that has served in the last 140 years.
Mm-hmm.
And every single member has given us the opportunity to keep this country great and where we are today as still a free America. So, thanking all of them for their service is the most important thing. But also, I believe, remembering the fact that, you still have help, that you still have camaraderie, that you still have each other. And, I saw a funny thing today that, I was reading where all the armed services, it doesn't matter what branch you're in, you're going to gig the other one, right? Because yours is better than the other armed services, whatever it is. And your time was better, and we were more badass, or whatever that is. And we do that, but then you also have to remember that, there's 30 or 40 million veterans in this country that'll stand up today and still fight for freedom.
Right.
And it doesn't matter what it is, we'll stand shoulder to shoulder with every single veteran we have, and we will do what it takes to make sure that we will be free. So
absolutely.
Whatever that is, man.
No, I completely agree with you, man. And like Mike said, we give each other hell, whether it be Marines, Air Force, Army, but we are a brotherhood, we are a sisterhood, and we stand together. So for all of our veterans out there today, happy Veterans Day. We salute you. Thank you so much for your service and your sacrifice, and may God bless.